Okay, good morning, folks. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Hill. I'm with the marketing team here at Taqtile, and we have a great session planned for you. About 30 minutes of slides and then plenty of time for Q&A. I'm joined with Andrea and Joe, who are a couple of manifest experts and have spent a lot of time talking to customers about this topic specifically. So it should be a good session. Just a couple notes before we get going. It is recorded. And if you do have Q&A, go ahead and put it in the panel and we'll address it at the end. So again, thanks for joining us. And let me hand it over to Andrea and Joe to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, afternoon. I'm Andrea Marks. I oversee our customer success department here at Taqtile and also handle all of our services delivery. Really hoping to work with some of you in the future. I've been with Taqtile since 2012, so it's been a journey, and I'm excited to be here today.
Thanks, Andrea. And my name is Joe Kluke. My role at Taqtile is North American sales and also some partner support. I've been with the company about 4 years. I'm actually based in Dallas, Fort Worth. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. So to jump right into it, the 4 topics we're going to cover today is first and foremost, wanted to talk about the HoloLens challenge. We're all accustomed to, many of the people that are maybe on this phone today have either used a HoloLens before or currently using a HoloLens. And there are some challenges around that. So we are going to spend some time talking about that today. Secondly, we're going to talk about our product, Manifest, the solution, and give you just a brief overview. Not in depth. Certainly, it's going to be a high level because we don't have a whole lot of time, but we're going to give you a high level overview of our solution. And then from there, talk about our migration program and what we've done and what we've created to try to help customers as we tackle some of these challenges we're all potentially staring at here in the future. And then lastly, next steps. What do we do? Where do we go from there? So the HoloLens challenge, like I said before, HoloLens has been around for a long time. It's been a lead device for many people on this call, including Taqtile. One of the challenges that we're all staring at here is that the support for this device ends in 22 months. So that's not a lot of time. And most of you on this call have put significant effort into either investing into the HoloLens, investing into maybe a guides deployment or other use cases utilizing the HoloLens. So how are we going to tackle that? How are we going to tackle that as an industry? How are we going to tackle that as a couple of partners working together? And the roadmap for guides specifically is just unclear. There's nothing been formally announced. Nothing has come out from Microsoft, but there's not clarity on where things are going. And we want to find a way that we can work together to hopefully preserve that investment and also minimize any kind of disruption that might be caused with the amount of effort that you all put into a guides deployment and the content that's been created for that. And then lastly, what does that look like? What does a migration look like? What's the transition time? What's the transition cost? What do you need to do from an effort perspective? And how can we, as a company, support you in preserving that investment, like I mentioned before, but most importantly, minimizing the disruptions. If you want to move from point A to point B, we want to make that as seamless as possible. So for the few of you who are on the call that maybe haven't heard of Taqtile or worked with us before, because we have worked with many companies in the industry, we've done pilots and such, but we are a SaaS enterprise company, and we were founded in 2011. Our initial products back in 2011 were web applications, many different types of web applications. But in 2015, Microsoft came to us. They were launching this new product, this augmented reality headset that was going to come out and shock the world. And they were looking for partners to launch. And what they did is, out of maybe thousands of companies like ours that were out there, we were one of 7 to be a launch partner with Microsoft for that initial HoloLens 1. And that's our background. And ever since then, since 2015, we've been building our core product, Manifest. Right now, we have 3 spatial patents, and there's 4 other patents that are pending. We have a global footprint. I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. I'm just here central, and so I'm here to be able to quickly and easily move across the country, in the United States at least, to be able to support customers and support potential customers. But our headquarters is in Seattle, Washington, but we do have locations also in Paris and Sydney to support the rest of the globe. And the majority of our development today is done in Tucson. Here are also some example partners. So partners we've worked with on projects, or partners we work with on hardware, and also even software partners that are on there as well. So there's a couple examples there, and customers that span quite a range, from manufacturing to pharmaceuticals to aerospace, heavy military presence, defense contractors. So we definitely span the industries as it relates to who we work with and what we deliver. So for our solution, what the landscape looks like today on the digital instruction side is typically, even the most sophisticated companies that are out there have paper-based instruction. And maybe if you're looking at a journey that a customer might go through, traditional would be paper-based, or maybe they've taken a small jump into that digital transformation and moved into a PDF, showing that PDF on a tablet or a phone, creating like this small jump into the digital world by converting that. But there's also the modern side of things, where you're working in augmented reality, you're working on digital headsets, hands-free, mixed reality, virtual reality. There's these more modern digital solutions that are out there as well. And what we've done is we've created a product called Manifest that works across all of those different phases or journeys that somebody might be going through. We can incorporate traditional documents. We can bring in documents that have been converted into a PDF. We can put that as part of a procedure. We can also use the tools of today, where if you create an instruction, it can be used in a hands-free manner. It can be used on a desktop. It can be used, as you see on the top there, on a tablet. But it's an all-in-one operational tool. And the main difference between us and most of our competitors that are out there is we've taken an operations first approach. Is we want a tool that we can arm people who are out in the field and give them the information they need to complete their task. And so we're targeting operational use cases, and that's been our focus as a company versus training. And training is typically the launching spot anyways for most customers. It's a great way to test the waters, but eventually training becomes something that it doesn't have as much of an impact, and it's harder to expand. So you want to continue to train your people and train them well, but what else could you do with the tool? What other operational functions can you bring to the table by utilizing the same tool? And that's what Manifest has been built for. For some of the details around what we can do is we have our emerging technologies. The emergency technologies we talked about before, like the use of digital twins, the use of XR equipment or hands-free headsets, the ability to integrate. We have an open source API, so we can integrate with other systems like the SAPs of the world or the Oracles of the world. Other work order management, where you're sending a work order, we're accepting that work order, we're assigning that work order, and then we're giving them instructions on how to actually complete that. There's also AI. AI is slowly being worked into every aspect of our product. Today, it's being used for the content creation side. How do we quickly and easily make it so you can create content and so that you can start executing work? But there's other ways that we're slowly thinking about how do we bring in AI to benefit our clients and also our product. The traditional content, like I'd mentioned before, the one thing that we can do is bring in those traditional SOPs, the checklists. If you're doing an inspection, you need to have a checklist, something you can follow as you go through process docs, like easy ways to capture data, go through a procedure in a spatial manner or even a two-dimensional manner. We can also repurpose the existing manuals you have, add those to steps as we go forward. But one of the true benefits is the enriched media. Today, if you want to learn something, you might go to YouTube, or you might go to somewhere to learn how to change your carburetor, whatever, something that you might not know how to do today, you might go and watch a video somewhere. Now, that's not curated. That's not very systematic. That doesn't allow you to bring in other tools like audio or photos or animation or bookmarks, bookmark more detailed TNAs and documentation that you can bring in. So we put a structure around that. We allow you at every step of the way to bring in multiple photos, multiple videos, audio notes, bookmark PDFs. We can bring in animations. So many different things at any given step that you can bring in to make it more clear on how to complete that particular step. And then lastly, if you want to be operational tool, you need to give operational functions, the ability to capture evidence. If you're doing an inspection, one of the critical components of an inspection is capturing evidence that you did the work. Also marking faults. If you're going through an inspection, if you find something wrong, you need to be able to take action on that. We have the ability to mark faults. Also tracking performance. How did Johnny or Sally do? Which steps are taking the longest? What kind of asset history do we have? What work history do we have? All of that is recorded. And especially if you're talking about inspection. So we're talking about some of the more important compliance aspects of different procedures. Those need to be tracked. And they need to find a way to be able to track that, or you don't truly have an operational tool. And then before we move on, we also have integrated remote assist. So if you're going through a step, looking at this picture, remote assist gives you if your procedures, you might think that they're perfect. Someone who creates them, and they're very self-explanatory, but sometimes people still get stuck. And you have the ability to quickly and easily call someone for help in a see what I see manner, either on a tablet, a desktop, or in a headset across the board. And to make this an enterprise tool, you need to have the ability to have editorial control. If you're updating a procedure, who updated it? What was updated? You need to have a record of that. You need to be able to still operate inside of a job you might be working on or an instruction you're going through. But while someone is updating and editing that, you have to have multiple states of editorial control to be able to scale across the board. And then a dashboard to review everything and then organize the data. This is a lot of data. When you're putting together digital work instructions, there's a lot of data that goes into this. I'm sure everyone on this call knows this, but you need a way to organize that. Is it just for the service department? Is this for the training department? Is this for building 3 department? So we have the ability to create orgs and suborgs of orgs so that people, when they log into the system, they're only seeing the data that's pertinent to them. So what we are truly is a digital work assistant that gives you step-by-step instructions, gives you that fault management and inspection systems, integrated remote assist, and those operational insights that are critical for any kind of continuous improvement you might be looking for. So next thing you're going to see is a use case. So you've heard me talk a lot. You've seen some pictures, some animations here. Now you're going to see a video. This is just one use case that we've captured. So I'm going to let Chris forward that. And this is an inspection use case.
Inspections with Manifest. Get the job done right the first time. Inspectors are required to follow step-by-step instructions in sequence. This reduces equipment downtime and increases product quality. Instructions are enhanced with videos, photos, documents, and spatial elements that explain how and where to inspect. The result is more accurate inspections and minimized errors. Required evidence of photo, video, text, or audio assures accurate step completion and drives accountability. Comprehensive fault management streamlines repair time and increases machine uptime. Fault details can include marked up photos, text, video, and audio. Custom fault codes can be defined to drive uniform reporting. Spatially anchored faults show exactly where they are located on complex equipment or vehicles. Taqtile. Empower the doers.
So when you're ready to get hands-on with Manifest, we've built a migration program to help you prove that Manifest is viable as an alternate solution to what you're using today. So if that's guides, we want to prove that we can not only get you off guides, but that Manifest can provide those extended operational benefits that Joe was mentioning earlier. So our objective for this program is obviously to prove that Manifest is the better and viable solution. And then we'll work with you to build a plan for migration with minimal disruptions. So what we'll give to you during that time is access to Manifest experts. So not only people on my team on the service delivery side, but also people on Joe's team, people that can help you guys create content, and also people that will help you migrate one or two guides from your existing guides deployment into Manifest. We'll also give you a test domain and some trial user licenses, again, so that you can understand what the content creation process looks like in Manifest. But also, we really want you to test and realize some of that operational value that Manifest offers. And then we'll work with you to create kind of a plan for a full migration, should that be the next step for you and your business. Go ahead, Chris. So what does that planning look like? Essentially, it's a standard project plan. I think what we would work with you to decide, is this a phased approach? Is this a scaled approach? So to Joe's earlier point, is this something that we start with rolling out to training, and then we look at maintenance, and then next we look at the services team? But what we first do is just go through a discovery phase with you. So we want to understand, what are the objectives in the migration? What's the scope? What are the desired outcomes for both you and your end users? And what does success look like? Then we'll build a plan. So again, include strategy, who are the stakeholders. We'll help you understand and outline what resources you'll need. So that it usually includes physical resources, human resources, things like that. So we'll outline all that for you. We'll work with you to develop a data migration plan. So what or how many guides are you planning to migrate from guides to Manifest? What does that look like? How much time does that take? What's the QA process like? We'll go through all that with you. We'll, like I said, design that migration method, and then just really develop the solution. So what we'll do is we'll, like I said, get as many guides as we need to into Manifest, QA those guides, and then deploy them. One thing that we feel is really important is we want to workshop and validate that everything is accurate. So this would be not only with your content creators, but likely we'd want to test this with some operators or end users, and then train and enable that workforce to make sure, again, that transition is seamless, there's minimal interruption for your business, and that you're not losing any value. So any investment that you made in guides, you'll recoup and hopefully get some additional investment, like Joe said, with the operational benefits that Manifest provides. We'll also work with you just to train and enable everybody or all the stakeholders that will be participating in this. And then last but not least, one thing we talk a lot about here at Taqtile is we really want that process to be evergreen. So we want to solicit feedback from those people, iterate, adjust quickly, review outcomes, and make sure, like I said, that everybody is, the success criteria we set out to achieve is actually being met, and that everybody's happy. Go ahead, Chris. So all that to say, we built this quick migration program. Joe will talk a little bit more about it as well. But essentially what we're looking to do is just have a 2-week focused engagement with you. Experts from my team, experts from Joe's team will participate. We'll allow you to leverage some of our migration technology. So give us a couple guides, we'll import them and work with you to make sure that you can view those guides in Manifest. But also we want to help you realize some of those operational benefits of Manifest. You'll get a trial domain, some licenses, and Joe can talk a little bit more about the pricing.
Thanks, Andrea. Yes, so my dad always used to say that proof is in the pudding. And I don't know if that dates myself, but one of the main things we want to do is prove to you that not only can we be a viable replacement, but also expand outside of use cases that you have today. So there's no cost associated with the 2-week trial and the testing and the migration of the 1 or 2 procedures that you might have. Now, we are very strict as it relates to the timeline on the 2-week trial. So we have to have all of our ducks in a row, but that would consist of us doing some training on the front end, letting you test the different devices that we could potentially operate on. And then probably in the middle of the 2-week period, we'd migrate a couple of guides so you could see what those look like inside Manifest versus what it looks like in guides, but also allow you to do some testing. How do you create content? How easy it is to create content. We want to make sure that you're comfortable with the system. So that's what this 2-week period is for. Now, as we get out of the 2-week period, we do have a guides price matching program. So we want to make this as easy and as seamless and as little disruption as possible, not only from a workflow perspective, but also from a cost perspective. Make this easy. So we have a price match program for 1-to-1 your guides or remote assist licenses that you might have today, so that the barrier from a cost perspective isn't inhibiting you from making the right decision for your company. So that's been going on, and we want to continue to work with you on that. But the most important thing is that first 2 weeks. Let us prove it to you. Let us show you what we can do, how we can do it. We'll work with you. We'll show you as a company how we work with clients as well. And then as we go past that, there's a matching program. And then as we get outside of that, the matching and look for other use cases, then it would fall back to more standard costs that Taqtile offers. Few things. Why are we different though? I think you probably, as we've gone through this presentation, you've seen a few things that are different. But one of the main things is the operational side, the ability to assign work, track work, all of it built into one system, integrate into other work order management system or other ERPs or other tools where you have job management. You're able to collect this evidence. You're able to have fault systems and put together dynamic workflows that allow you to move from the training side out to the operation. Also built to scale. We have those editorial controls I talked about. We have a data hierarchy to make it easier for you to manage that data, manage the number of templates, manage the users and what they can see, make it a more seamless experience for the users. Also, a flexible deployment. We can deploy locally or we can deploy in our cloud environment. So there are many different ways that we could deploy. If you have an existing cloud environment that you want to continue to operate in, we can do that. You could deploy it. We have a containerized offering that we can deploy that way, but we could also operate probably like you're operating today in more of a cloud type deployment. Also, even though we haven't talked too much about this, we do support 3D. This isn't something we don't. We do support 3D models, bringing in models, but most of our customers we found typically like to rely on the videos, like to rely on the pictures, on the PDFs, giving them basic information on how to complete the task. And we have a complete suite of offering when it comes to any step, being able to add all of these different media types to give the right data at the right time to the person doing the job. And then lastly, simplicity. We all know making these templates and making guides, it takes some time, but how do you do it quicker? How do you make it so it's scalable? We built a system to make it very simple for you to create the average person, the average Joe, to be able to go out, record a video, break those into steps, add in different media types where you can be up and running on a new procedure and pushed out to the field within half a day. And these are longer procedures as well. So easy to do, easy to license, can make it integrated. And lastly, Maker. So you see this big bubble here on the corner. One of our tools is a free tool. It's called Manifest Maker. It integrates directly with Manifest, our core product. And that just allows you to test it. You could download it today if you wanted to on an iPad or an iPhone. And you could test out how to create content, how to quickly create content, how to create content that's ad hoc. Maybe you want to give this to an operator. The operators typically are the ones who are doing the procedure. We want to give them a tool where they can help you with this authoring process. So you can download Manifest Maker today. You could test it out. There's no cost to it. And you can see how you can start creating content extremely quickly. And this just gives you finally we talked about device support, but these are the devices. Over time, there's going to be more and more devices. We're excited about the devices that are coming out this year. And as new devices are coming out this year, we're going to be testing on them. We're going to be trying to figure out what is the future device out there. But for now, we are continuing to support the HoloLens. We also have a MetaQuest build. We also have an Apple Vision Pro build. We have Magic Leap. We can operate on desktop, tablets. So the devices that are out there today, we do operate on. And we're going to continue to look for more opportunities to operate on more head-mounted devices and other types of devices as well. To us, the device is just a deployment method. There's going to be different devices for different situations. In an operational setting, a headset might not be the right solution. Even in the future, when the perfect headset comes out, it might be that a tablet is the right solution. Maybe a phone is the right solution because that's what you have, or that's what the operators, or that's what the people have in their hands today. It might be some time before you're buying these head-mounted devices for the entire field. There are challenges with that. We all know that. So what is the right device for the right operational use case? We support many different options. We'll continue to do that. This list is going to grow and grow. And lastly, HoloLight's a partner, and I don't know who's worked with HoloLight before, but a HoloLight allows you, from a security perspective, be able to host our entire instance and do all the computing, all of the processing in the cloud, and then stream the application down to the headset. So from a security perspective, all the security is being centralized and managed at a certain location. And you could have a dummy device at the field that could be a head-mounted device, that could be a tablet, that all of the data and all of this workflow and all the content that you're seeing is being streamed to the device instead of it living there natively and locally, which can be a much more secure way and much easier way to manage a whole fleet of headsets or fleet of tablets that have this content on that. So we're extremely excited to continue to work with HoloLens, what they're doing, and we're seeing a lot of traction in enterprises, because enterprises are the ones that have a lot of devices to be managed. And how do you do that is always a question that comes up, and HoloLens is an extremely powerful solution to help you with that. In summary, before we get into Q&A, and I think I'm almost exactly on time, which is great. What we talked about, we can help you preserve the program. And we're going to continue to support the devices, the HoloLens 2 and other devices as we go forward. We're not going to stop supporting these devices. We know we have a lot of customers, and there are many customers out there today that are still using it and will continue to use it. So we'll continue to support it. We're also going to continue to look for other opportunities to build on and move us into new device types. We're going to help you with migrating the tech. We want to show you what we can do and prove to you what you do at no cost. And then as we get into the licensing and things coming after the proof, we're going to match it. We're going to make it as easy as possible for you to migrate over to Taqtile. And lastly, if you need more information or want more information, we're happy to set up a discovery call. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to talk about what you're doing today and what your future goals are. And other than that, I think that's it for today. Was there anything else we needed to talk about, Chris?
No, I think you guys covered it. Great job. So if you want to set up a discovery call, go ahead and hit this link and reach out to us, and we're more than happy to get on a call and talk about details of the program, talk details about your guides implementation. Happy to do that. There's also a link up here for Manifest Maker, as Joe points out. It's a great free app. If you haven't used Taqtile software before, go ahead and try that out. It's got some fantastic AI features in there. So we encourage you to take a look at that. But there's a number of questions that have come in, good ones. So let me start with this one. I think maybe Joe, Andrea, someone's curious about how we manage data to make sure only certain orgs or groups can see or edit what they're supposed to. So I think maybe providing some details on orgs and then also user roles might help. Do one of you guys want to take that?
I can take it.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Andrea.
So orgs gives you the ability to really segment data. It's called orgs for organizations based on your organization. So it really can be configured to your liking or to your requirements. And then users can be assigned to an org, and they would only be privileged to see the data that's in that org. So there's a root or parent org, and then the hierarchy kind of trickles down after that. It can get really complex. So it's something that we would definitely want to work with you to make sure that you were setting up that data hierarchy in the way that it needed to be segmented. And then users can be provisioned as part of a unique org and assigned roles. And roles essentially delegate their permissions or what they're allowed to do within that org. So the data sits at the org level. So templates or work instructions, for example, that need to sit at the parent org, if you had like a safety training, would sit there. And then if you had procedural training that was related to somebody's specific shift or role, you would create a separate org for that. We have some collateral that we can also share, and I can also point you to our community site that can help detail this out. But it really allows for you to segment data and then assign users and roles within that unique org so that they are only privileged to see the data associated with the org that they're assigned to. Hopefully that helps.
One thing I'll add to that is that you can also be assigned to multiple orgs. So if you were someone at the top of the root, like a manager, you might see everything that's underneath that. So you have privileges that go down, or maybe as a user, you want them to see all the training content and the operational content because they're technically part of the operational group, but for the time being, you want to assign them to training because they need to go through the training. So you could assign them to multiple orgs, and then also just by a click of a button, remove them from the training org if you want them to be in the operational org only.
Yeah, that's great. And if there's interest, feel free to set up a call with us. We're happy to demo orgs to you and give you a little bit more insight into that feature. Super powerful. Okay, another good one around operational data and its output. So someone is curious, what does the output look like? For example, when you're looking at evidence that's been submitted, is that a single file, or how do people use the operational data and how do they see that and export it?
So that's a good question. It could be done in quite a few different ways, and that's why I'm pausing, because it could be packaged up in a single file and sent somewhere. It could be an individual file. So what we would recommend is that manifest in a larger scale deployment wouldn't be the source, wouldn't be the record of truth, the single source of truth. So we would set up some kind of integration, and we could pull over any of the evidence that they captured and pull it over and assign it, let's say, to an asset that sits inside SAP or Oracle or something like that, so that evidence sits there versus sitting in manifest. The way it shows up in manifest is through the job history. So if you go to the job history, you could pull up a job, and inside that job, at any step, if somebody left evidence or marked a fault, you would then be able to see what they left behind on the fault side. What was the fault? Was there video? Was there a picture? What was there? On the evidence side of things, it would be same type of thing. You would see that there's evidence attached, and you'd be able to see the individual files that were left behind.
Yeah, you can export that as a zip file, as a PDF file. So there's options to do that. And again, like to Joe's point, if you're using Manifest as a point solution, we allow you to view it within our web application and also export it. But if you're using Manifest as an integrated solution, we can also pass that data to the system of record in whatever way it needs to be passed, and you can view it there.
Great. Let's see, I'm just going through the list. There's a DoD specific one. Someone's curious where our data is stored. Do we support government cloud? Do you guys want to comment on that?
Sure. Our data in our commercial tenant is stored in the Azure public cloud. We also have an on-prem solution that would allow you to deploy that, using Docker. We also have a taqtile.us domain that's used for DoD content. So any CUI data is stored in a separate instance. And this is a little bit outside of my technical depths, but we have a team that manages this and works in close partnership with the DoD. And we could talk to you more about exactly how that data is hosted, but it's separate from our Azure public commercial cloud.
Yep. Okay, specific guides questions. So they're curious, someone's curious about what our approach to object anchors and recognition, and specifically, do you support aerial targets or state-based recognition?
The way we do it today is, and we're experimenting with many different formats, is still through a QR code. I'm sure you have all used a QR code. So QR codes, the first way we would do it, and the other way is 3-point touch. So you would identify 3 points on an asset when you're going through the authoring or the creation process. What you would do is you would set it up by touching those 3 points. And then when the user came up, it would request them to touch the 3 points. It's going to triangulate and then lay down the digital QR code there as well. Or you can do the manual digital QR code, drag and drop. We are experimenting with more object recognition. That's something that we're working on currently, to be able to scan an object, load it into the system, and then it would recognize it as you come up and place the QR code digitally on that as well. But that's not here today, but that is something we're strongly working on.
Yeah, we're also definitely exploring some point cloud stuff on the tablets for object recognition as well. So I think that a lot is going to change on that in the first couple quarters of this year.
Okay, great. Okay, one more around GDPR compliance, and it looks like maybe a European organization. They're curious if we can have the data processed exclusively in a European economic area.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is that we would offer a Docker version that could be then hosted in any European cloud instance.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we don't have a limitation as far as where we deploy. It's just a matter of where customers need it and how they want to ingest it. So if it needs to be in a certain area and it needs to be in a certain cloud environment, that is a possibility with our Docker solution. That we're not going to do that for every client. It has to be the right client, but any client has the ability to be able to deploy in whatever cloud environment that they would want to do that. But ultimately, they're managing it in that environment, unless we created our own hosted version that we pushed out on a public cloud in a different geography.
Okay, great. Here's one, I think, for Andrea. merging a couple, but there's a couple people curious about just how long do these migrations typically take and how easy is it to move from guides to manifest?
My bias says that it's easy, but I think that it really is it's such a variable thing. Like it depends on how many guides we're migrating, what data's in those guides, how they map one to one to manifest. So I think my advice would be like if we went into that 2-week trial, we would really scope out what we think the rough order of magnitude is for effort to migrate your full implementation. But like I said, it's a variable. It also depends on how your business manages change. So how would that change be managed within your business, rolled out, trained, et cetera. So it's definitely a variable timeline, and it totally is based on the approach.
It really depends also on the content, right? So if you have a heavy 3D model type deployment, then that might be slightly different than if you're mostly focused on just the instructions, some basic anchored objects that are pointing things out. All of that, it all can be pushed over quite easily, but then there can be fine tuning that needs to be done on the back end to clean it up and make it look the way that you would want it to. But the basic guides that we've tested on today you're really just taking a guides file and then you're sending it to us for a test and we're uploading it and it's ready to go. So it doesn't take too long to do that, with the exception of some of the more complex builds on a model type scenario where you're going to need a little more curating in that area.
Okay, good. Yeah, good questions here. Another one for you, Joe, I guess, is just someone's curious about use cases. We showed that inspection video. We talked a little bit about training, but maybe you can comment on other use cases.
The main use cases we're seeing are training. Obviously, that tends to be an initial starting point. Then we'll go to inspections, which you saw a video around. The next one would be preventative maintenance. So the keys around inspection and preventive maintenance is the audit trail. You need to have a record and you need to have a way to be able to assign, let's say, a preventative maintenance to a less skilled employee where they can go out, follow a set of instructions, show that they did that, mark that for record, also integrate it into another system to show that they did it and when they did it and how long it took them to do it. All this data is extremely important for running an efficient organization, especially in a manufacturing facility or a maintenance type organization. So those are going to be the main ones: inspection, preventative maintenance. And then you can get into just standard maintenance. But the challenge, like which I'm sure you all know with standard maintenance, isn't that you can't do it. It just takes longer to make the content. So there's more variables on what potentially could happen. We have ways to handle that inside our system with branching logic. However, it's going to take more time because there's just more content to create, whereas an inspection procedure is a great way to get quick time to value. And same with preventative maintenance, because these are critical components that happen every single day. And they have a very linear set of instructions that you can get started and start getting value out of quickly.
Yeah. Okay, great. So it looks like we're down to our last question. Might be a little tricky, but someone's curious just about, I think, the format of backups and data and content. And they're worrying about the chance of Taqtile being bought or changing the structure in the future. And they're just curious, is the data stuck in Manifest or can it be accessible outside of Manifest?
Yeah, the customer owns the data. And again, you can export that data at any time from Manifest. So any work instruction in Manifest, we call that a template or SOP that's created, can be exported in various ways. PDF, you can export the media files at any time. We also keep a full copy of your Manifest database. I don't exactly know the format that data is in, but the customer owns the data at all times, and there's a myriad of ways that you can export that data outside of Manifest. So any photos or videos that you take that are hosted in our cloud are yours and accessible for download at any time, or a copy of the database can be accessed at any time. Again, a little outside of my technical depth, but if you have more questions about that, feel free to set up some time with us and we could get you in touch with somebody that can answer that.
Great. Yeah. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for the questions. Andrea, Joe, thanks for the presentation. If there's any interest at all out there, again, hit this QR code, set up a meeting. We'd love to go deep with all your questions. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.